Hi everyone, thank you for coming to my talk today. My name is Cronin, and today I'll be giving a presentation on creating an open source video player. You can follow me on Twitter or email me. I don't use Twitter that much, but yeah. I'm going to give a brief overview of who am I. I'm a front-end developer with a bit of a design background. I've worked at a multitude of organizations, including nonprofits, web agencies, editorial news places, startups, and currently I work at a consulting agency. The company I work for is called Reaktor. I started there in August 2018. We provide premium software consulting for our clients. Our organization is structured using a flat structure. There's no managers. We're all senior level people, and all projects are managed by the developers and designers actively working on the projects, which means we use small teams. We follow agile work practices, and we have offices in New York, Finland, Dubai, Tokyo, and Amsterdam. Some of our other clients include HBO, Zappos, Viacom, and Adidas. Cool. So today's talk, what are we going to be talking about? I'm going to start off with giving a bit of a background to the project. I'm going to go into some of the project overview and requirements. Then we're going to look at some code samples. And finally, talk about what the success was and how we move forward. All right, so why is this talk important to you all? These days, clients want custom players, custom websites. You know, no one wants a cookie-cutter experience. However, there's real-world implications around this. So today, I'm going to be going through a real-life case study of a project I just completed a couple months ago. In this project, we were a bit of a small team. I was the only team member from my company on the project. And in the end, at least from my point of view, the project went well. Okay, so to get into the project background, I'm going to give a brief overview of my relationship with the client before the project, how I was onboarded, and where I added value to their team as a consultant. I promise we'll get into code after this section. I just wanted to give a good overview of where I was in my mindset and, you know, kind of before I started coding the groundwork. So the organization I did this project for was called First Look Media. They are a media organization founded by Pierre Omidyar, who is one of the creators of eBay. And they were founded in October 2013 as a venue for original independent journalism. Some of their publications include The Nib, which publishes political comics, The Intercept, which publishes news, and Topic, which is the project I'll be talking about. And in 2016, as I said, I worked for them on the website The Intercept. So in 2016, FLM now had been, First Look Media, had been around for a few years now. And you know, they had a few of these news websites. The Intercept was one of their first ones, which had news. And then on the other hand, they were also creating some evergreen content, including the film Spotlight, which was a film based on true stories around some of the Catholic Church stuff in Boston that was widely released. So they had these news websites, but they were also creating this content. This movie was released in theaters. And they had this desire to create more of this evergreen content, but they didn't really have a place for this content to live. So in 2017, they decided to create a studio called Topic Studios, which would be direct to consumer, where people could go on the site and view these movies or short pieces of content. There's a lot of great content across a variety of formats, including illustration, photography, video. And like I said, they wanted to create evergreen stories that weren't tied to the day's news. And in 2017, the first version of Topic launched. And like I said, I was not a part of the organization at this point and had not started my involvement with them yet. And it's can be seen at topic.com. That's her current logo. So how I became involved was around 2018, Topic, in October 2018, Topic had gone through a rebranding and was trying to, they had been out for about a year now, and they wanted to rethink their web platform. They realized that they had a lot of great content on the site, but some of the users didn't really know how to navigate the content. It wasn't obvious that they had video and photography. There was really a lot of great content, but it was kind of hidden in the site. So they decided to go through a rebranding, and along with that, they wanted to redesign the site and rethink its strategy. So in October 2018, they contacted me and asked me if I could help them, consult for them and help them meet their deadline of remaking the site. And as I said, I'd worked for them in the past, so I knew a lot of the team members from before, and I could integrate very quickly. Now I'm going to give a bit of the project overview of the specific project I worked on and how I was onboarded, where I added value to the team. So the 2018 redesign, like I said, they had been out for about a year. They had great content, wanted users to understand it more. This is a brief video of the redesigned site. And why am I giving this background about them? I think it's very important in projects to understand the client's past, the client or the product, the past, where it was, where it is today, and where they want to move it. And this will be unique in every case, right? So for me, I was brought on to, actually I'll get into this, but yeah, no project's in isolation, right? Even if you're building a video player, you really have to put yourself in the shoes of like, where is the client now? This is going to affect what your end product is. So a quick overview of the team and timeline. We had approximately 6 developers and 3 designers to create this whole new site. My responsibilities were the homepage and the video player. And we had about 5 months to do this. Okay, site and player requirements. Some of the new goals of the website the client wanted were a bigger focus on video, a custom video player experience, and ability to extend the player down the road. So I was not part of the strategy phase, but during the strategy phase, I think it's great to inform your decisions from the best players in the industry. It's very easy to look at YouTube, Netflix, Twitch, and get inspiration. I think the same slide. Sorry, duplicate slides. Anyway, these players are great. We all use them. Most of us use them every day. And they're doing things very well. They do user testing, and these are large companies doing good video players. However, I'll say building YouTube, Netflix, or Twitch is not possible, right? And I had this asterisk because obviously it is possible. They built them. But in most circumstances, you're going to have certain restrictions, right? You may be working on a small team. You may have a tight deadline. It may be the first version of your player. I think it's very important to not put your eyes on we need to create the next YouTube, at least in version 1, right? Because you're probably going to be let down in the end. So here's a brief demo of the video player we built, and then I'll get into how we built it. So as you see here, this new player on Topic, the UI fades out as the user is watching the player. It has some preview as the user scrubs through the timeline. And as you'll see, when they get to the credits of the video, a next up thing appears, very similar to Netflix or something. And you can click it, move on to the next video, and it's intended that the viewing experience is seamless across videos and series. Okay, so just to reiterate, I was saying each project, so what I want you to think about as I move in this next section is each project is unique, like I said. You should always think about who is your client and product. What do they want their thing to be moving forward? And what resources do you have? Okay. Cool. So yeah, here I'm going to discuss some code samples. These are just examples. I try to pull out as much real pieces that I could from the project, but also make them illustrative of what I'm going to be talking about, and I'll say apologies if some of it has a few errors. I just pulled out the code to highlight examples. Cool. So to give a background of the front-end stack we were working with, it was an isomorphic React app. It had GraphQL, Relay. We were using TypeScript, and we were using JWPlatform. And this is the tech stack for a lot of this was a part of the old site and was also the foundation for the new site. A lot of the platform was staying the same. And we also had CSS modules. Cool. So to talk about JWPlayer and the JWPlatform a bit. So in the first version of the site, the client topic used JWPlayer and JWPlatform to host their code. And to give it a bit of a background, JWPlayer is the JavaScript plugin that anyone is freely available to use that is just an out-of-the-box video player that gives you many of the features you would need in a player. And on the other hand of things, JWPlatform is you can host your videos with them and distribute them through their platform. And a lot of times these two may be used in conjunction, which they did for the first version. But in version 2, the client decided to stray away from things a bit. They decided to move away from the player, but still keep the platform. The platform streamed videos great. It handled the files great. There was no reason to move away from that. However, the player had some limitations. As I said, the client wanted a custom video experience. For example, they wanted overlays on top of the video. They wanted certain video events to trigger other page events. And this would be quite difficult to do with JWPlayer, which is more of a player that kind of lives in a box and is supposed to work in isolation in a way. So to achieve a custom player, we utilized a lot of open source tools. Some of them were, one of the bigger ones was Video React, VTT.js, which we use for captioning, and HLS.js for streaming. And just to say, why open source tools, right? Well, there's some obvious aspects, like they're available for anyone to use. You can modify them, everything. You can contribute back to them. But I think most importantly, with open source, you're allowed to fork these tools if you need. And especially in a project with such a tight timeline, we ended up having to fork a few of them and either apply a quick bug fix. Like we could fork it and push a bug fix to the open source tool, but there was no guarantee they would merge it in time for us to use it. So what was really great is, we could fork these repos, rip them open, add our own little quick fixes or functionality additions. And this really, really helped us out to move quick. So the first plugin we're going to discuss, and it was really pivotal to the player, is called Video React. You'll see here, this is their website. It uses React. Out of the box, it's a React video player. It uses Redux under the hood to manage state and view based on state. And it also allows for custom components, which I'll show in a second. As you may or may not have thought, in this project, I built video players in the past with vanilla JavaScript, and something, React really shines because it's view based on your state, right? And building a player without something like React can get very tedious, and a player is very stateful, right? Like when you pause it, the whole thing should know it's paused, et cetera. And I really realized that React and Redux are amazing for video players. When you hit the pause button, you can update your state, say you're paused, and the whole player will automatically know this. And especially with the custom video player, we wanted to certain UI elements change based on if it was paused or if it's been playing for 5 seconds. And having React and Redux at the underlying layer really, really made a lot of that easier than it would have been without it. So it has state management, and with Redux, you also get middleware, which further along in the talk, I will show where middleware really helped us add some special functionality to our player. Okay, so one of the first features where Video React, this is really one of the features that made us notice the plugin itself and decide to use it was it has, there may be more correct terms for this, but what I call composable components. So some React plugins, you may just import the React component, and you call that component, and whatever is inside of it is either triggered through props or whatever, right? Like, you can't really have a ton of control over its parts, right? Maybe you can put your own children inside of it, but for the most part, usually a lot of plugins, it is what it is. With Video React, they follow, I'm not sure if it's necessarily a new pattern, but it's a pattern I've been seeing a bit more and more, where they expose multiple components from their plugin. So, for example, their plugin would just work if you put this player tag on your page, and it will render their standard player. However, they also expose each one of their inner components. So in this example, you can see that I have the choice to take big play button and put it wherever I want in my markup. Right? I could take this big play button and wrap it in a div, say, and give that div styling or something. And the plugin, they include everything: control bars, play toggle, so pause play button, poster image, volume button. And these are just out-of-the-box components that they have in their player and are able to, as you see in this example, you can compose how you'd like, right? And there's typically your play toggle is in the control bar. But with their plugin out of the box, you could put the play toggle in the top right of the player if you wanted, say, right? There's really no limitations, and they give you they expose these plugins that they made for you to use. Another great thing, as you maybe guessed, is that you can also put your plugins inside of this thing. So in this example here, player and control bar are imported from Video React. And you notice here a download button is a component that you hypothetically can make yourself, which maybe it's a button that you want users to be able to download your video. And this does not come packaged with the player. In this example, you'll see here that I can make my own download button, which can do, it has all the player state available in it because it's been hydrated with Redux. And yeah, just as easy as this, you can style that button and make it download the video the user is watching using your own code. Okay, jumping into a second plugin we used was HLS.js. For those of you who don't know, HLS.js is a HTTP live streaming client. It takes this format of live streaming video and will automatically pick the best stream that the client can download at the time. And this plugin really manages a lot of this for you. And it's quite amazing. It's quite a complex plugin as well. There could be a whole talk dedicated to this. So I'm just going to breeze over it a little bit. And I would encourage you all to look into it if you haven't. Okay. So HLS.js, it integrated very well with Video React. They even have an example on their website showing you how to do this. So normally Video React, their out-of-the-box method, you give it an MP4, it'll create the video tag for you, etc. They also provide a way, using this prop is video child, you can basically tell the player, don't render a video component, don't render an HTML video element for me, I want to do it myself. And HLS source is our own plugin we wrote. And just like the download button in the previous example, you can integrate it into the player. And you can see here, this is a basic implementation of so here's the player.js. This would be your player file. We're importing HLS source. And this is an example of what your HLS source component could look like. Let's give a bit more background. HLS source is not a React plugin, but regular JavaScript plugins are easy enough to integrate into React using the React lifecycle methods. Like component did mount, you mount the HLS stream to your video, and when it unmounts, you destroy that stream. And there were some nuances in our integration that we needed to work around, but for the most part, it worked out of the box and was really great. HLS.js, just to give a bit more of a background, it It has tons of events for videos, including great error handling. It's extremely robust. The only thing you have to be mindful of is it does not try to, so iOS supports their own video streaming stuff, and HLS.js does not try to polyfill any iOS stuff. So if you're working with a platform that supports HLS natively, you have to write if-else code that will also handle iOS circumstances. So, it's very easy to get accustomed to all these events they provide. You just have to be mindful that on certain other devices that do support this, you'll have to use their vanilla JavaScript methods. Okay, the second plugin I want to talk about is VTT.js. So VTT.js, actually forget what the acronym stands for, but it is this plugin is an implementation of the web VTT spec, which it handles VTT files which give you closed captioning in your players. This plugin is made by Mozilla and used in Mozilla Firefox. So, you can assume it's been tried and tested and does all the features you would need captions to do. And yeah, the reason we needed a plugin like this is, the HTML5 video element supports closed captions and subtitles by itself. However, you don't really have much control over these native captions. When you turn captions on in the native HTML5 element, they kind of appear where they're going to appear, and you really only have control over things like the color of the box around them and a multitude of other things. And there's reasons that they don't give you control, right? Like accessibility stuff. The user, in a way, should be allowed to style their own captions, not you styling them. However, in this project I was pulled onto, we had the desire to style our own captions, partially because a lot of this video player UI we had a custom UI over the player, and if we rolled with the default captions, a lot of our UI would conflict with the positioning of native captions. So to loop this back in, so we found VTT.js. It's used by Mozilla in Firefox. Therefore, we knew it's reliable. It allows you to roll your own captions. And it also is good for thumbnail scrubbing, which I'll show a demo of in a sec. And the implementation, thumbnail scrubbing is, in the demo, you'll see right here, is the ability to, when you hover over the timeline of the player, you can see a preview of where they're going to see. So we got this implementation from JWPlayer does this exact thing. And JW streaming provides basically how they do this is they provide a captions file. And instead of providing words in the captions, the captions has a URL to an image. So here on the left is a sample of this VTT file. Usually you'll have these for captioning, and it'll say at 3 minutes, someone said this or whatever. But JWPlayer has smartly also provided a file that says at 19 seconds in, here's a URL to the image preview. And so utilizing this closed captioning plugin, which we use for subtitles, we also could reuse that implementation in order to achieve this scrubbing effect at the bottom you'll see here, which is quite nice, right? They're very different use case. Like when I scrub, I'm basically saying move this theoretical playhead in the caption and show it in a different way than subtitles, but a lot of the underlying code was the same for this thumbnail preview and regular captions. Okay, moving on. I want to give some more examples of video React and how Redux works with it. So, as you all may or may not know, Redux is a state management library that is used most commonly with React. What it allows is your application to have one source of truth for your application state, which is called a store. Along with Redux, you can apply middlewares. What these are little snippets of code that can get triggered when state changes, right? Like when my player goes from paused to playing, I can provide a small snippet of code that knows when the state, I'm not listening to when they click the button. I listen to when the state of the player changed. And I can fire off certain things, including analytics events or add events. In typical other scenarios, you might fire the analytics event when they click a button, say, right? That's kind of the most obvious way to do this. But maybe you have, there's a play button in the bottom left, and there's also the play button of the video you're watching when you click it, right? If you're doing the trigger on click, that's two areas you have to connect to. Versus in Redux, both of those buttons are firing a state change, so we can have one call for analytics of did the user play or pause the video, which is really fabulous. Okay, so I'm going to run through a quick example of how we integrate Redux into Video React. And actually, let me rephrase that. Video React has Redux. It uses Redux itself inside of the player. However, they allow you to provide your own store, which then allows you to access that store from outside the plugin. Okay, so on the right here, you'll see some code sample. And I'm sorry it's so tiny. For the most part, it's a typical Redux setup. At the top is where we create our reducer. And a lot of this you see here is we viewed the Video React source code, and we basically just had to copy over the store they had just to ensure that the player is going to work how it did before, right? And in addition to the store that Video React is looking for, we could add our own store objects. So you'll see here, on line 14, the player object is provided by Video React. It has maybe the duration you're in the video. But also right next to it, we have is next up clicked. And this is a piece of state that we added for our specific use case. And like you see here, we create our store, just like your standard setup. And we just pass it to the Video React plugin through the store property. And it integrates extremely well. And if you place here, you'll see we apply a middleware, which I'll show examples of in a sec. And how we also expose the store to our other components is by putting the store in our wrapper components state. So we can then access it from outside of the player. So accessing the store. Thank you. Okay, so on the right here, this is a code sample of one of our components. I believe this one was inside our functionality wrapper of the player. And this piece of logic right here is the logic that decides to show, if you remember from the video I showed a few slides ago, to show this upcoming, the up next box, whatever. And this is a logic of, so every render frame we're checking, is this counting down, is this counting down? You can see here, that type of logic might get quite complicated. It's when the credits are showing, did the user dismiss it? It gets a little complicated on whether to show it. And you can see here, we, like I said before, we injected our store into the state. And so from the state, we can pull the current time of the player. We can pull down if this box has been dismissed yet, which is our own custom store, and also the duration of the video. And here's some business logic here where we basically say, should we show the box or not? Yep, store is active state. Okay, great. And just to show a little more demo of this. So, when this box is showing up, it starts counting down, and the user has the option to dismiss it. By default, if they left that box up, you would continue on to the next video in the series. However, sometimes you don't want this. And so, as you'll see here, they have the option to click this button and hide it, which then will make it not pop up, and you also will not be auto-advanced again. And so the way we did this is very easily. When they click this, this is next up button is our own custom component, which has access to the store. And when we click it, we dispatch an event in Redux. And now our reducer can just set our own keys in the state. And this now, from my last slide, that box, that function that was checking if to show this or not is reading from those properties there. And like I said, all of this is pretty, if you use Redux in the past, all of this is totally standard Redux. And it was really quite amazing that, we didn't need our own separate store from the player, right? Like these store objects we're setting here are right next to the duration of the video, is the video buffering, whatever. All of this state is integrated and synchronous. To continue, I'm going to show an example of some of the middleware we used. So on the right here is, this is the previous example I showed setting up the store. And you'll see that we apply a middleware to our store called tracking. And this is how we did all the analytics in our player. And there were a few other things. So using middleware, we did analytics as well as saving user preferences. Say if the user muted the player, when they reload the page, the player should still be muted. If they chose captions or whatever, we'd like to save these settings. And we also want to save how far along the viewer watched the video, which could be used for a multitude of things. And then also, we can use middleware to do custom ad experiences, right? Like based on how far you've watched in the video, trigger a state change that says they should watch an ad now, et cetera. I sadly don't have a code. Our code actually was quite large for this analytics stuff, but like I explained before, we're really just listening to state updates and firing off analytics events based on that, which I think it was just super amazing to not have to, you didn't really need to think about, when I was making the analytics in it, I didn't need to think about the UI of the player anymore, right? I just need to think about what's the state of my player, and when state changes, what events am I firing? And this is really great abstraction of mind. Okay, moving forward. In the player, especially on mobile, I decided to embrace native functionalities. What I mean by this is, there were a few reasons, but what we did was on mobile, when the user hits full screen, we fall back to the native iOS or Android player. And there were a couple reasons we did this. I think in the beginning of the project, the client did want a custom full screen experience on mobile. But there were a few reasons I recommended against this. One of them was the sake of time. Mobile can be quite difficult to develop for. It's touchscreen devices, they can rotate it. All of this kind of made me wary to try to make a full screen player on mobile. You'd really be fighting a lot of things, whatever. So one of them was sake of time. Let's see. Secondly, let's see. Yeah, those are. Secondly, I thought, in a way, I kind of framed it as well as, maybe we don't have time to do the full screen one, but also, the danger of making your own player is maybe you're not going to hit the accessibility markers that you really wanted to, And in my mind, especially on mobile, I thought of this not that the user necessarily knows this, but I saw the full screen button kind of as an escape hatch of, there's a lot of accessibility iOS is providing you, and our player, like I said, it's just a V1, and we're not going to hit perfect on everything. So at least give the user some option to go back to this standard player that they're used to, right? Everyone knows how to use the iOS video player, so don't prevent them from using that if they'd like. So moving on a bit, I just want to talk about, as I was developing this player, I think as developers, we're on crunch time a lot of the time, and you really get into this mindset of developing the application. And it kind of can be, as I was making this player, I started realizing I wasn't using it as the users would watching the site, right? I'm making features. I'm never watching a full video, really. I'm really reloading a lot of the times. Like, if it's on in the background, I'm also in my text editor. And for example, we were getting bugs where it would be on in the background, and the video wouldn't progress to the next one. I'm like, this would happen in the background, and we couldn't figure out why. And at one point, even though we were on crunch time, I kind of took a step back and was like, you know what, I need to start using this player more. Also as developers, we need to take breaks sometimes as well. We can't keep working and working, churning stuff out. So one thing I told myself personally was, even throughout the day, maybe it's your break or maybe it's even while working, just take a step back and watch a video. Like I said, Topic had a lot of great content. And once I got in this mindset, each day I would stop and just watch a video on the site, partially to see more great content, and also just to experience how a real user would use the thing. In developing a fade out, me, a developer, I'm using it quick. I'm like, it should fade out in 2 seconds or 3 seconds. But then when I watch it as a regular user, maybe that fade, I perceive it a bit differently. And also, watch it when you're at home. Watch on different devices, watch on different networks. You don't want to get to the end and test your player and realize one of the features you built, you're going to have to spend a lot of time fixing across devices. Another great thing we utilized was storybooks. In developing the player, I developed a lot of it using React storybooks, which is a plugin that allows you to basically take your dummy components and trigger state changes in it. It's very useful when first developing, but later on in the project, I started really trying to use the player in its real ecosystem. Cool. So now I will discuss some of the success and next steps of the project. Initial success. So for the project, we hit our deadline in 5 months, which was really amazing. Obviously, in some projects, you cut a few things out, but overall, we accomplished everything we wanted to hit. And a quote from the client while we were launching was, "This was their smoothest launch ever." Not just because of me, but because of the whole team. We really had practice at working together, and the project went very well in that case. And the client to this day, one of them is here now, someone from the client's here, and they are continuing to extend the player that I built, including adding custom ad integration, which should be coming out soon. So long-term success and moving forward. We'd like to evaluate some of now that the player is live and being used by users now, and obviously we'd like to look at analytics to confirm some of our assumptions about the new design and make sure they line up with our goals. Are users viewing more than a couple videos? Are they exploring some of the content? Stuff like user interviews is great with that as well. Do they understand what the site is meant to do now? We want to push the experience even further. For example, going back to using these other players as inspiration. As you may have watched, like the Netflix Bandersnatch video, Netflix is trying to break the boundaries of what a video player is. Their Bandersnatch thing was an interactive video experience. Maybe you liked it, maybe you didn't, but I think especially with storytelling, it's great to be able to experiment with different ways of storytelling, even through video. And so when you have a custom player, you have the freedom to do this. Great, and that's my talk. Like I said, I work for a company, Reaktor. We do consulting, and please check us out, and please check out Topic. They have a lot of great content, and that's it.
I'm just curious about...
Here, do you want the microphone?
You can just repeat it when...
Yeah, okay.
Sort of self-serving because I'm doing an analytics session after lunch, but can you talk a little bit about the analytics backend? Was that homegrown too, or were you using an existing analytics platform, or can you say?
Yep. So the question was, the analytics platform on the back end, did we roll our own, or what service are we using? And I will denote that to a guy in the crowd who worked on the platform, actually. This is Tom. He works at First Look Media. I don't have the answer.
Test. Okay. So we have sort of analytics distribution thing on our front end that reports to multiple backends, GA and Parsley are two of them, and then there's a bunch of others. But we kind of report the same things to lots of places.
Thanks. Any other questions? Yep.
Just to understand, summarize what you mentioned. The player itself, the basis of the player is JW or the other one, the
Video, yeah.
video.
Yeah. So the question was, is the basis of our player JWPlayer, or is it Video React? So yeah, the player on the site right now does not use any JWPlayer code for the player itself. The only JW features we're using are from JWPlatform, and JWPlatform is delivering the video files in a multitude of formats for us to ingest. They're creating the caption files. JW backend is where the video team is uploading their content and stuff, but the website itself is not using any JW player
So
code.
the platform is the other player, which is MP4, and then you add HLS capabilities by HLS.js.
So the question was, does the platform serve MP4 and do we convert to HLS?
HLS by HLS.js.
So JW Platform also provides, I actually forget the format that they give. Yeah, so JW Platform does provide M3U8 wrapper.
HLS.
Yep, yeah, so JW, that's the reason we stayed with that platform. They're providing these files and converting them. And HLS.js, we're just using to consume those and play them back to the user. Yeah.
You use VGT to implement the next box too? Like
So-
you did on the script.
Yeah. So the up next was, so some of that, so we're not actually parsing the video. Netflix might be doing some machine learning stuff to figure out when credits are on. We did not do any of that. The timestamp when credits start is inputted from the video team at Topic. And so on the front end, all we're doing is, some videos don't have this timestamp, therefore we don't know when they start. In that case, I think we fall back to the last 5 seconds. But to answer your question, in that box, we didn't use VTT. It's just, we grabbed the thumbnail of the next video, and if we have this timestamp of when credits start, that ties into this logic of should we show the box or not. Yeah, there was nothing magical. Maybe down the road.
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you for that.